Hello, it's January 31st, 2023, last day for submissions, and I happen to have stumbled across Call for Stories, and I thought that I would make an attempt to whip something up based upon my experience as a long-time technologist, having a career of roughly 25 years with one organization where ultimately I was dismissed without what I would call great cause or great even consideration of who I was for the organization. Be that as it may, one of the things that I did after I was dismissed was actually to put together a story, a book, which contained anecdotes, vignettes, if you will, from my career, such that I was able to at least get it out in the world. Now, the book hasn't been well received anywhere. It's self-published on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, etc. But nonetheless, I think it's something contains good information for people on the spectrum who have intention of getting into business, working for an employer, having a career, having expectations about how they will be valued or not valued. One of the things that I have a very difficult time with is advocating for myself. I tend to let things flow along, and once we get to a tipping point, I tend to be a bit aggressive in moving forward. Fortunately, one of the themes in this book is about angels in life, and while I was working for this company, I did have a number of angels, advocates within the management structure who bolstered my position and realized where the value that I was able to provide was. At the organization, I started out as a software developer, became a software development manager, worked into a software architecture role, later moved into a strategy team role, working with marketing people and the technical team to decide on features and requirements. I'm probably the individual with the broadest range of experience at the company ever. Having been there for almost 25 years, I wasn't one of the people that had the same year of experience 25 times. I basically had 25 years of different experiences. Nonetheless, this vignette I'm going to offer you from my book is regarding the synopsis of how I was dismissed from the organization. Basically, I worked myself into a role where I was technical director of our innovation labs, where we were looking at new product opportunities and trying to field test them or bring together prototypes and put them in front of potential customers and that sort of thing, using what is called the lean startup model. And to that end, I want to talk about how I ended up leaving. Basically, the reason I have the book here is because I'm going to use it to sketch the story out in the way the book says it. I may even read passages, but essentially, I had a manager who came in above me who was, in my opinion, not really qualified to do the role, but he had the gift of gab. He was able to talk the talk, which is fine as long as he lets the team work. I'm okay with somebody being the front man. That's not really what I want to be. I want to be with the team, working on technical problems. But one of the things I say in the book is, beware the gift of gab, managing up, and dubious credentials, toxic. And put in a situation where our group was designed to test out ideas quickly and discard them, but our manager ended up getting this idea by having listened to this audiobook called Platform Revolution, and he decided that he wanted the innovation labs to put together a platform. Now, in software terms, a platform is a huge thing. Think Google, think Amazon. These are things that you can put all kinds of other technology stacks behind and use them to put them out into the world. So for those of you that aren't technical, these are huge endeavors. and really not suited for what an innovation lab should be doing. We should be doing point products, just trying to establish where there might be value in any type of solution to the markets that we serve, as opposed to producing something as grandiose as this. Now, being a technologist, I love problems like that. So, and my team was all young. There are people, majority of which were fresh out of college. I had a few senior people whom I worked with through my career and brought into the innovation labs. So, good mix of experience and enthusiasm and bright minds. One of the things I really enjoy doing is being around a bright mind. One of the problems working with this manager is that he would constantly change his mind. The shiny object would get him to focus on something new every couple of weeks, and we were endlessly trying to refactor the system. Since it was a platform, I put together an architecture, and I had to evolve it to adapt to all of the different needs that he was putting before us, and it caused, especially with the young development team, a lot of rework. And I'm fine with doing rework, but it's hard to show value to the organization if you're constantly doing rework. You're not delivering anything. It's constantly changing to meet the new requirement. So over the course of the summer of 2019, the summer of 2019, we had to refactor the platform at least 3, 4, 5 times. And so we got it to the point where we had a solid architecture in place. We were implementing on the Amazon Web Services platform, our platform on their platform. And when my manager, whom I'm sure was under pressure to be delivering something, had a personal tragedy of some great depth, the death of a family member under tragic circumstances. And he took some time off. And when he came back, he was changed. He was changed even worse than he was before, more erratic, more aggressive, and very impatient. So what he ended up doing is when he came back, he started talking to me, making comments like, "John, you don't seem happy here in the group anymore. Maybe you should look for something else in the organization," which completely baffled me. In my autistic mind, I'm like, I'm not good at reading between the lines, and I'm like, but that seems pretty direct, like he's trying to get rid of me. And it was, the worst part of it was actually the most happy I was in my career, because working with this team of young minds and being able to evolve the system the way and at the rate that we were doing it was one of the most productive times of my life. And we were building something that actually could have been a business platform to allow us to deploy a number of different solutions to market very quickly and integrate them with other solutions very easily. The framework, it all gets into the details, but the framework itself was strong. And I really enjoyed working with the people, but my manager was becoming erratic. At one point, December, we were talking about delivering something for a blockchain kind of company that they were looking at partnering with. We had an API that we had committed to produce for them. And it was part of the platform. So in a status meeting with daily stand-ups, weekly reviews of overall progress and stuff, my habit was to let the people that were leading the specific work report on the work. So one member of my team actually reported that the API would be ready within the delivery time frame of January 15th. This was like the middle of December. And then he reported that the rest of the platform wouldn't be done for another month and a half after that, which was fine because we could deploy the API, what was needed for this partner, on the deadline with no problem. Well, after the meeting, my manager calls me into his office and basically bawls me out for not having everything ready. All he heard was the latter date, not the API date. Didn't bother trying to understand what was being put in front of him. And I was just like completely frustrated at this point, having lived for 9 months plus with him changing his mind every few days. And I literally said to him, you need to write it down so I have something recorded so I can work towards that, because the requirements keep changing and I don't understand what I'm supposed to be doing. We don't understand what we're supposed to be doing. People are talking to me, they're stressed out, they don't get why everything's changing all of the time. And he was blurted out to me with some frustration and anger. If I have to write it down, John, this isn't going to work. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? There's nothing in concrete. He can change his mind anytime he wants if he's not going to write it down. So I just walked out and I'm like, okay, fine, I'll do what I have to do. And basically what I did is I turned the organization around so that I talked to the team and I said, okay, this is what our boss has said. Let's deliver what he wants that we're supposed to deliver by January 15th, deliver it by Christmas, which is a week and a half away. Now, it turned out to be a little bit unrealistic because people were taking time off, but we delivered it by the new year. So he had what he wanted 15 days early. No comment from him, no compliment, no nothing. Just let it go. And ultimately, the stupid thing is, it turned out that he didn't even need it because the partner that we were looking at wasn't ready for it on January 15th. Turned out they never actually used it. So this behavior went on for months. And within the projects that we were doing, we were getting conflicting information from him, and he was literally taking individuals into his office, telling them one thing, bringing another individual from the same initiative in there, telling them something different, and telling them literally not to talk to each other. And people, we trust, with me, I'm an open book. I try and make sure that I'm very emotionally in tune, empathetic. People say that people with autism aren't empathetic. I am. If I turn myself away from being task-oriented to making my task my team, I'm actually really good at focusing on the needs of the team. But these people, this manager just was torturing us, basically. And I don't know to what end or what purpose. I mean, he was just unstrung, is probably the way I put it. And it got to the point where people were coming to me crying, literally crying in my office, and I had to give people, they wanted hugs, which is an uncomfortable thing for me to do, but I did what I had to do to keep the team together as best as I could. And ultimately, one of the persons came in to me and said, they're stressing out. I'm like, well, why don't you just go to HR and see what they have to say, see if they can give you any advice, like for counseling services or whatever else. Raise your concerns about the manager, because the more people that say something, the better case there is for an intervention. Well, they did that, and right after it got fed back to the manager and his boss, they called me into a room and said, John, you shouldn't be telling people to go talk to HR. That we're putting this on your record, that you told somebody that they should go talk to HR. Now, it was complete bluff. They actually had a piece of paper, but it never got into my record because it wouldn't have made any sense for it to get in my record. They were just another manipulation on me to try and push me out of the group. I don't understand why he saw me as a rival instead of an asset, but I suppose because I saw through his bluster, his front that he put on, and treated him, more or less as he really was. He didn't appreciate that. I didn't kowtow to him. I didn't say the nice thing. I would deliver bad news if there was bad news to be delivered, and all of that kind of stuff. But basically, during the course of this period, the team got so stressed out that I had to do something.
If you find yourself in a place that you consider unsafe, is your best strategy exit?
No. The question was, if you consider yourself in a place that you feel unsafe, is the best strategy exit? Absolutely not. The best strategy is to step up. The best strategy is to be the leader you wish you had. The best strategy is to find someone you trust and say, we have each other, let's look after each other, but let's also commit to looking after everybody else. There's some good research on this as well. There was an article in HBR some time ago about how to deal with a toxic leader. And if you have a toxic leader, you can see this in dictatorships. Same idea, it's the same thing, right? So what dictators do is they seed paranoia and create separation amongst the people. Because dictators know that if the people come together, they're out. Dictators always fear the people. And that's because anthropologically, it's not the leader that has the power, it's the group that has the power. We're social animals. Leaders have power over us as individuals, but as a group, we control the leader. And so in toxic environments where you don't feel safe, very often what happens is an environment of fear and paranoia is created such that the people no longer help each other. They're too busy worrying about themselves. Maybe you have one friend who watches your back, but it's not enough. And so they maintain their control. And so what you want to do is break down these barriers and say, hey guys, all we have is each other. If we're going to be happy at work and we're going to survive this and we're going to do good things, we have to look after each other. And what the research shows is two things happen. One, this person becomes completely emasculated. They lose their power. And usually higher ups then start to notice. Because they are very good at managing up and pretty bad at managing down. You're welcome.
So I approached our human resources team and I said to them, this manager, he's doing all the behaviors I just described, and the team is stressing unduly, and I was basically asking HR to come in and help us, counsel the whole team, including him, to work better together. But the comment that came back from the HR person was, that's quite an accusation you've made. Now, I take words literally, and I'm like, I didn't want to use the word accusation, but it was. I was saying, this is the situation. So I stood up to the word accusation. Well, that's all that HR needed. So that turned into an investigation. They brought in a third party. The third party HR person interviewed everybody on the team about what was going to try and figure out what was going on. My claims were fully substantiated. I don't think there's there's nothing qualified about the accusations that I was making. And the decision was made that my manager would be demoted to basically my level, but I would be dismissed from the organization. Having been fully vindicated or fully supported in my claim, and no one in my team stood up for me, stepped up. I found that so baffling, is that I knew that I was taking a personal risk doing this after 25 years, but I figured I'd been there 25 years, that the organization would understand who I was and what I had done. But the fact that I was a niche individual, in a way, just made the machine that was the organization indifferent to the value that I held or the person that I was. And the galling thing about all of this is that the organization that I worked for all these years, one of their social causes was autism support. It was a stunningly ironic way to treat somebody such as myself. It was very emotional. I got my cousin involved, who was an employment lawyer. She actually was on calls with me where I was talking with HR in the office. She supported me through this, trying to advise as best as she could. But it was a 2-month period where they basically gave me rope to try and find another position in the organization, but then behind the scenes quietly said, no, told people don't hire him. Well, all right, that's an accusation that is not supported by necessarily fact, but that's how it felt. Some sort of pariah I had become. But since my dismissal, I've landed on my feet to some degree. I desperately miss the social environment of my work, because not only was my professional life part of that work, it was the foundation of my social environment. It was my way to interact with people that I knew well on a regular basis. This working from the home office environment is absolutely horrible for me from that perspective, and on top of my ASD, I also ADHD. I'm also prone to depression and all of that. So being at home is not my preferred environment. And losing that structure that was so important to me on a daily basis has been devastating to me. I'm doing fine otherwise, but career, I'm doing consulting right now, but it was such a loss, and so needless was this departure that I've just had a long road since 2019, when all of this baloney, bullshit, whatever you want to call it, just fell upon me. So anyway, I appreciate you having taken the time to listen to my story. If you can, put my book out there, I appreciate it. It's something that I actually hired a ghostwriter with, and we actually have kind of a humorous spin on everything, best I can. Also people said I'm kind of lethal towards cutting is probably a better way to put it, but the word lethal was used in terms of exposing bad habits of business managers, executives, and that sort of thing. Anyway, appreciate you taking a look. Hopefully I get this in time, and my submission is worthy of being used in your process. Thanks for listening.
The question was, if you consider yourself in a place that you feel unsafe, is the best strategy exit? Absolutely not. The best strategy is to step up.